Saturday morning seems to be the best place and time, at least recently, for some Miami football talk with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So we welcome everyone in on a Saturday morning, bright and early, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Bring your comments, your questions, your debate topics, whatever you would like Cam and or myself to address concerning Miami football, the ACC, and the nation. All right, Cam, how you doing today?
I'm good. Just hanging out, enjoying a sunny Saturday here in South Florida. Believe I already got a delivery this morning, so we will see if one comes for the third or fourth week in a row while I'm on here. And then the update for everyone, if you were wondering what I'm sipping on, the price is on the can.
Now that product I am familiar with. Yes, I am familiar
absolutely.
with that product. It's a good one.
Very good.
All right. So many people in the live chat, in particular last week, but forever, considering the state of the offensive line, but in particular last week, people were clamoring for offensive line candidates, prospects, commits. You got some, which is good to hear.
Yeah. So Miami's on a mini recruiting run, if you want to call it that. It's not the biggest run ever, but I've gotten a couple of guys. So if you remember last week, before last week's show, Alan Hay from Chaminade Madonna, 3-star defensive tackle, committed. And then after we wrapped recording in the evening on Saturday, I'm going to start at a different position, then come back to the offensive line. But Malik Curtis from Fort Myers Bishop Vero High School, he committed. He's a fast guy. He's like 5'11", 160, but has run in the 4.4s, like 4.48, in the 40 and everything. And so, I mean, he's an elite speed guy. So he committed, and Miami is talking about putting him at cornerback on DB. I think that he's a perfect fit on offense in this new scheme, just as a space and pace player. A DeAnthony Thomas kind of, God, what was that guy at West Virginia, the number one kid, Tavon Austin. I mean, just that kind of, like, I think that Malik Curtis could be that. Obviously, his staff says that they're going to bring him in, or he has said that Miami's bringing him in at defensive back, which matches up from everything that I've heard as well. I just disagree with it. I think you're trying to reinvent the wheel if you're putting Malik Curtis on defense, honestly and truly. It's almost like one of my good friends, Major, shout out to Major, that's his real last name, by the way, was talking to me years ago, and he said, yeah, we just need some athletes on defense, Cam. We need athletes. So this Ahmad Richards kid, you need to put, and I said, wait, what? I said, this kid is a 3 years in the first round draft pick at wide receiver. I said, nah, I need to put him up at corner, at safety, something. I said, Major, that ain't it. And I was right about that. I don't have the same kind of conviction about Malik Curtis, but I see him as being a better fit on offense than defense. But he plays both in high school. So you have that. And I wrote about him on State of the U. I put it up a couple of days late because I forgot to hit publish. My bad. But getting back to the root of Mark's question, offensive line was also addressed subsequently because Ryan Rodriguez from Christopher Columbus in Miami, he committed to Miami. As well. So he plays tackle in at the high school level, but he projects as a center or interior lineman at Miami. He's a kid who's already seen a ratings bump from ESPN and Rivals both, I believe, since he's committed to Miami from a 3-star to a 4-star. This is the kind of guys that you should be getting, honestly. He's one of the best linemen that's down here in South Florida. Obviously, I mean, there's still going to be some misses. There's guys, the Dumervilles, the Isaiah Walkers, the Marcus Tates in the last couple of classes who've gotten away, but you get Ryan Rodriguez, and that's a big step in the right direction. So I think that, I mean, obviously recruiting a school like Columbus, that is one of the better schools in the state of Florida at football at the 8A level, excuse me. And they put many a guy into prime positions. Obviously, Deion Bush went to Columbus. He came here. Brandon Ratcliffe went to Louisville, had a very good collegiate career. Other guys have gone to Columbus, excuse me, and come here. Trajan Bandy, Chris Henderson, recently, those guys went to Columbus as well. Henry Parrish in last class, who Miami made the right choice not to recruit at running back because you got 2 better running backs. in this class. But again, Henry Parrish is a very good player. If we had room for 3, I think that he would have been number 3. I think he was number 3. But when you have numbers 1 and 2 in South Florida, you get both of them. Letting Parrish go is a good thing. I say that as an aside, just to say that there's plenty of talent that's come through Columbus recently, and you get a guy like Ryan Rodriguez to come to Miami, and that's a great start. Furthermore, in the last couple of days, Jared Williams, Jarrid, from Houston. I know you like, wait, it sounds like Jaron, but no, Jared.
He coming back?
I know. I don't know where Jaron Williams is going to go. That's one of the great mysteries of life right now, because even Brian Hightower found a home at Illinois for his transfer, but Jaron Williams has been in the transfer portal for I did the math. It took Brian Hightower like 185, 187 days to from when he announced he was going into the transfer portal to when he announced his transfer location. Following the same timeline for Jaron Williams, based upon, I think it was like January 25th or something like that. That means he would not choose or announce a destination until August the 1st. If he were to have the same 187 days in the transfer portal that Brian Hightower did, which is an aside. But anyway, Jared Williams played at, Houston for the last couple of years. He started a bunch of games. He blocked for De'Aaron King the last 2 years, and now he is looking in the transfer portal, and it makes incredible sense that Miami is one of the places that he looks. Like I said, he's already blocked for Miami's incoming starting quarterback. Debate whoever you want to debate, but De'Aaron King is going to start a quarterback. Just wrap your mind around that now. Miami obviously has one scholarship slot left for a new counter. That's a new incoming player to the roster this year because the Willie Moise, who was at Chaminade and then he transferred up to like Orlando Jones or something to try to get his grades right. He's not coming to Miami, I don't think. So they were holding that spot open in case Willie Moise made it. But if Willie Moise, it's already May the 2nd, and we haven't really heard anything about him since then. You have the one slot open. You obviously need some kind of help at offensive line. And this is a guy who's played and was like a second team all Big 12 or all Conference USA, I want to say, player at one time. Like, this is a guy who, and I know, like, obviously you can point to the Butler kid from last year, Tommy Kennedy, who transferred in. Yeah, he was a FCS All-American and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but like, you're going up against at least FBS competition at Houston. And, they were pretty decent on offense for a time. And he's played pretty well, Jared Williams, that is. So it makes perfect sense to bring him in, whether he is your starting tackle, whether he is you just kind of have a 3-man rotation, 4-man rotation at tackle. Jared Williams coming in to this offense and on the offensive line, I think would be a big step in the right direction. So then you're not tied to using Zion Nelson at left tackle, which I don't think he had done anyway. He was at right tackle throughout the portion of spring that we were able to complete and things like that. So, if guys, and I get it, I'm with you. If we're talking about getting numbers to throw at the problem, adding talented offensive linemen to try to help, then getting a guy who's started, 20-something games in his career and has already played with De'Aaron King to come in and be in the conversation and probable in my mind. If he were to come here, I would pencil him in. I would write it in dark pencil, though. I would probably like write over it a couple times. I wouldn't put it in pen. But yeah, that's where I would look. And I think that if Williams comes here, there's a very good chance that he would start on the offensive line. And I think that adding a player of his caliber would be, a step in the right direction for Miami.
Just a note to anybody out there and a little bit of advice. If you're Googling, searching for information on a particular player, for this one in particular, Jared Williams, go to State of the U. I went right down the line when I went to Google. I went right down the line. I ran into so many pop-ups and paid services where I'd get the glimpse of the information I wanted, then it's gone because it's a paid service and the pop-ups are all over the place. Then I got to State of the U and I just went through the paragraphs and I was all set.
Our guy Carl Bleich was all over that when I was at the secret day job when that happened. So he hopped in there when he went into the portal, that is. So one of our contributors, he went in there and hammered out a nice piece on that. So, yeah, I know that you guys are used to seeing my name on the byline a lot, but we have a great team over here, man. So they're stepping up and everything. So yeah, you can go over stateoftheu.com and check it out with, like I said, Carl Bleich's piece on Jared Williams.
New King God. Yes. Did I just wake up? I look like I just woke up. I woke up in stages this morning. It was back and forth and back and forth. The rundown on the commits here. Ryan Rodriguez, just to give the metrics on the recruiting rankings and so forth, 6th rated center in the country, according to the 247 Sports Composite. A top 500 player at number 456 nationally, 70th rated player in the state of Florida. Out of Miami Columbus High School, as Cam outlined, and Malik Curtis, 73rd rated athlete, number 122 out of Florida, out of Fort Myers, again, as Cam outlined. And again, Jared Williams with pretty considerable experience along the offensive line in front of De'Ara King and others at Houston. So, like you said, at the end of your dissertation on all three players, if you're weak at a position, you bring in volume and you hope 3 of the 5 hit or 2 of the 5 or whatever to upgrade the position. And you go from there.
I mean, look, it's the same thing that we've done. To get to the previous question, have I looked up the offensive tackle Williams, who's in the transfer portal? No, I haven't. I've been focused on Hamilton, excuse me. No, I did not look at him because I was focused on Jared Williams because there's a ready-made built-in connection since he already played with De'Ara King, who's here. So no, I did not. What I was going to say is throwing numbers at the problem is something that Miami and all teams have done for a long time. I talked about this years ago on State of the U, and then we actually I had a conversation with Bud Elliott, who's now at 247, but he was with Tomahawk Nation and SB Nation and Banner Society for a long time about throwing numbers at the problem. And, you know, Miami was trying to do that at defensive tackle for a time. There's wide receiver, quarterback. Florida State had similar issues, and we talked about that. I think we might have spoken over that over wings and beer after a recruiting event that we went to. So I don't even know if I put that out on the website. But anyway, and this is something that Bud would say, oh, yeah, we had that conversation. So, I mean, you can at him or whatever. I don't say anything in public that I wouldn't say to the person or in front of the person. But these are conversations about throwing numbers at the problem that we had for a long time. And it's a thing that you do because until you find the guy, you need to bring in multiple guys to find the guy. You know what I mean? So you just have to do that. And an offensive line for that kind of position, you're bringing in many, many, many guys because you need 5 guys as one unit, and then probably 6 or 7 because somebody's going to get dinged up. Somebody's going to, whatever. We're going to try something different if something's not working. So, I mean, if you need on the offensive line 6, we'll call it 7 guys. I mean, if you're bringing in 6 quarterbacks onto the roster to try to find one, and you need 7 offensive linemen, that means you're going to have 20, I would say, to try to find them, or at least in a combination where you might have a weaker link, but he's good enough, and I can put him next to somebody strong. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to throw numbers at it. And it's just a thing that people do. And that can be in sports or out of sports, but that's a thing, that should happen.
Sigmund Sandifer. This story just came out in the last couple hours, first reported based on what I see here by SI.com 2 hours ago, Saturday Down South an hour ago, and USA Today, UGA Wire 39 minutes ago. Florida suffers decommitment from a 2021 all-purpose back out of Miami. The Florida Gators lost an in-state commitment Friday night. 3-star all-purpose back Rashard Smith, Miami Palmetto High School, decided to reopen his recruitment.
Yeah, I was on Twitter. I saw it when it happened. Because I do have, when I'm like actively engaged, I have the quickest reflexes on the timeline. So I know that I quote tweeted that immediately. I didn't write about it because why? But no, Rashard Smith is like 5'9", 170-ish pounds. A multi-purpose guy. He can be a running back, be a slot receiver, a kick returner, punt returner, fast, physical. I forget which 7-on-7 team he plays with, but I know I've seen highlights of him just doing incredible things on 7-on-7 tournaments. And I know that 7-on-7 tournaments are not 100% analogous to what happens with pads on, but it can be an indicator of athleticism, speed, talent, things of that nature. Florida was trying to go 5 for 5 at Palmetto this year. And that would be Corey Collier, Jason Marshall, Savion Collins, Rashard Smith, and Leonard Taylor. There we go. I remembered all 5. Bang, 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 bang. And those are all elite prospects, to be perfectly honest. losing a commitment from Brashard Smith obviously does not help them in that pursuit. And I'm not sure how that helps Miami either, because are you looking at him to be your slot speed guy in this class? Are you looking elsewhere? And, Rob Likens, the wide receivers coach, he's coached all over. So he's offering people all over, including, down here, but not necessarily focused only here. Brashard Smith can play. Brashard Smith can play at the FBS level. He's going to be a great addition for somebody's program. I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to be Miami. So we'll see what happens. Staying on the same topic, what do I think is going to happen with Fred Eaford? Fred Eaford is a wide receiver who played at HMS, Hialeah Miami Lakes. Hialeah High, excuse me, not the other one, Hialeah High. For my good friend Gary Sanchez, what's up, G? Who is the coach over there, and then he is transferred up to Deerfield Beach, which, if you know the geography of the South Florida area, is not around the corner. Anyways, going to Deerfield, I think he's going to get great coaching. I think that Fred Eaford is going to have the opportunity to go in any number of directions. I think it's up to Fred Eaford to decide where he wants to go. He's a guy who's like 5'11", 170-ish pounds, I want to say. Was like a first team All-State as a freshman at Hialeah and sophomore, or second team as a sophomore, something like that. So this kid is electric. He can play. I think Fred Eaford, is he a 21 guy or a
2021 guy? Yep.
Oh, he is. Okay. Wow. That's crazy. Because when I was, whoa. So, just putting the timeline back together of when I'd met him and G was talking about him to me and everything. So he's an electric playmaker. It depends. Obviously, he was committed to Miami. He does have some other big offers as I scroll on his page right now. Georgia, Louisville with Frank Ponce, who's from here, is, the area recruiter. He's gotten a recent offer from South Carolina as well. So I think that, with him transferring to Deerfield, I think that he's going to have more visibility just because Deerfield is that kind of a program that has visibility and has had visibility for many, many years. And his recruiting picture could pick up and everything, but it's kind of up to him. At this point, I'm not necessarily sure, because if I were to take a 5'11", 170-pound receiver, I would probably look at Jacoby George from Plantation, who was also committed to Miami previously. I think that I would take Jacoby George before I would take Fred Eaford, if it's me. You know what I mean? But Fred Eaford, he's going to have options on top of options on top of options. And, if, like I said, everything cools down with this coronavirus situation, we actually have a football season. I know that he'll do numbers up at Deerfield. I know they'll win games. They'll win big games in big numbers and everything. And there's always scouts and always coaches calling there, going by there, even from way back, even before I started working there, because I worked at Deerfield. That was my first job out of undergrad. Was teaching at Deerfield Beach High School. And I told a story before about how Jason Pierre-Paul came to my class to talk to his brother about his behavior, we will say. But I mean, like that was even when I was there, and before that, if you go back, Deerfield is always a program that puts kids at the Division I FBS level. And I think Fred Eaford is going to be that. I'm not necessarily sure it's going to be at Miami, but I think that he'll land somewhere pretty decent.
So it's fairly easy to do the rough math if you know anything about percentages and ratios, but I'll throw this one at you because I see this often. So the 247 composite is a composite of 247, Rivals, ESPN, correct? Anybody else involved in that you are aware of?
ESPN, Rivals. Their own. ESPN, sure. Rivals, and 247.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
somebody else.
Maybe they do some Tom Lemming or something like that. Maybe
it's like 4 at the most. It's 3 to 5 at the most.
Well, I mean, because Rivals bought out Scout, so that was like a 4th independent one years ago. But yeah.
So I always wonder about this. There seems to, so on a kid like Fred Eaford, you're looking at a kid who is the 96th rated wide receiver in the country, according to the composite. 247 Sports has him at 168, 96, 168. Therefore, the others must have him rated quite a bit higher than 96.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big disparity. And I would think the more the kids play and the closer we get to evaluation, the final evaluation and the final grade, that they would generally, not on every individual player, but on most, that their evaluation of that player and the rankings would coincide closer.
Yeah, I mean, they do, but it's an inexact art. I won't even call it a science. It's an inexact process for player ratings. And you see that every year because, NFL draft time. Oh, this kid was, a 2-star and blah, blah. Justin Jefferson from LSU, blah, blah. I was like, yeah. And I mean, guys get better and they develop. And I mean, you can change your if we're talking about the old, caste system, you can go between levels. You can start down here and then, work your way up with your physical development and athletic performance. Sure. But in the most part, rankings are pretty on. They're pretty dead accurate for the most part. So, I mean, yeah, and I mean, it does take multiple points of data to get there. You know what I mean? If you see a guy one day and he has a bad day, he can look like everybody's All-American. I'm thinking of a specific player I saw at an event one time. I mean, just gets off the bus, 6'6", 245 at 17 years old with 8% body fat, just oozing athleticism from every pore of his body, and goes out there and just doesn't do as well as you think he could. Then you might say, okay, cool, I'm going to rank that guy down. But now if you've seen him at a couple other camps and a couple other games and watch film from another game you weren't at and things like that, that's going to change your perception. So, I think that with everything, when you go forward, especially with recruiting, yes, there's going to be some big changes. You're going to see some guys shoot up and shoot down the rankings and things like that based upon, the situation and circumstance of their performance and their physical development and things like that. But as you get closer to signing day, the rankings are pretty accurate.
Yeah, so the point I'm making is that if you're capable and competent at what you do as an evaluator, and I am, let's say we're the only two involved, and we're rating said quarterback, and he's 2 years away from his final commitment and signing, and I've got him rated number 3, you've got him rated number 33, that one of us, if those rankings and ratings and evaluations hold, one of us is going to be a lot more right than the other one. But I think as we gain information, unless he finishes and he's generally the 16th best quarterback in the country, then we're both on the opposite ends. But I would think that as we gain more film study, more information about the kid, that our evaluations, if we're both good at what we do, and I'm not talking about every single player in the country, but generally our evaluations would come closer to the same.
But that's also assuming that we have similar viewpoints because you can approach things very differently. I'll put it to you like this. When I was a choir teacher, we would audition to perform at Disney for their candlelight processional Christmas time performance thing. My paradigm of vocal production, singing, choral singing, and Disney's did not mix. So my viewpoint and their view, so our audition scores were always low because they're like, no, we want you to have this paradigm. And I said, well, no, I operate on a different paradigm and we are elite at that. But if you're looking for elite performance in your paradigm, that you're never going to get that from me because I view it differently. And so that I think can come in when you're looking at recruiting as well, because similarly, if my paradigm for evaluation and potential for the future is mine and yours is analogous to Disney's from the scenario I just said, you might not have a lockstep, kind of peer level viewpoint because the prism through which you're evaluating and the prism through which I'm evaluating are different. So you're going to have those times when there are just collegial disagreements on players and just the kind of process. But in general, I do agree with you that, most people are, you're not going to be polar opposites on your approaches or things like that in terms of evaluation. But as you get towards a terminal point of the evaluation process, things do start to line up a little bit more. Yeah.
This is obviously a bit of a troll comment, but I'll read it anyway. Groon D who joins us on a regular basis. So we appreciate Groon, but
Appreciate
Groon likes to poke the bear. Cam is the only excited Kane fan. So before Cam has any response, if he so chooses, I will say, number one, first of all, I get comments from Canes fans every day. So Cam is definitely not the only excited one. There are tons of excited Canes fans. It's good to be optimistic in life in general. I will also say, based on our conversations on here each and every week, that I would consider Cam to be a very reasonably optimistic, and his optimism is very tempered for the upcoming season.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Hey, that's fine. I mean, I have other friends who are excited, who are, emotional people such as myself. And, we get pumped up talking about our beloved team, my beloved alma mater. Hey, and if I'm the only one, cool. It's like, when we do, when people talk about food on Twitter, and I'll say, I hate bananas because I was born in California and we had a banana tree in the backyard. So for about 4 to 6 months when I was a child, if it wasn't mashed bananas, I would spit it on my parents. They would literally be wearing it. So I had so many bananas before I have a coherent memory. I can't eat bananas now. But if I say that to anything, people are like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Look, bro, more for you. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about it. If I'm the only excited Canes fan, great. More for me. I'll be there. I'll watch it, talk about it, tweet about it, blog about it. I'll do all those things. So if I'm the only one, cool. I don't think that I am, but that's fine.
Donte Cologne always joining us as well. Question for Cam. What is your take on Miami's recruitment in regards to Manny's recruiting policy? I don't know that this is an officially stated policy, maybe. Do you think Miami will face a problem of accepting too many too fast and running out of spaces?
No. Manny Diaz. So getting to the point of the recruiting policy, Manny Diaz overhauled what it means to be a recruit or commit, when he got here, because it was actually the opposite. Miami was just accepting the word of people with no kind of backup to it, if it makes sense. And then that's how you saw the rash of decommitments and things like that. This is like when I was in college at the U, I went mostly on academic scholarships, but part on the My Mother Loves Me scholarship because my mother has a good job and saved for my college education for the rest of it. And so when I was a freshman, she said, I don't want to hear about you changing majors. If you change your mind, then you need to go and do the paperwork. And so the paperwork will come to the house and then I'll see it. So then I went to my advisor 6 times my freshman year, and every time I changed. So then there was like that tangible thing, that major declaration form that came to the house and said, okay, Cameron has changed his major to boom. That was the tangible thing that I had to do to state my intent or things like that. Miami didn't have any kind of tangible thing that the recruits had to do. They could just tweet and be like, oh, I'm committed to Miami. Cool. And so Manny Diaz changed some of those things. He put in protocols in place that he and the staff believe would try to curtail some of those things for people being committed to Miami. It means this, 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 and this. And these are the engagements that you can or cannot do, or will not do, and things like that. And look, you don't have to commit to that. Ooh, I cannot use that analogy. It's a perfect analogy. I cannot use that one. Shucks. But you have the choice not to if you don't want to. You know what I mean? But if you do, then, we're going to try to hold you to these guidelines. So Miami has fewer. Well, it does have, Miami's 13 commits in this class right now. Kids are going to try to start saving spots in classes around the country right now just because of coronavirus and the fact that recruiting is different this year than it has been ever. You cannot do in-person visits. You cannot bring mom and dad with you to this school, to any school. It's like Savion Collins. Like, everybody thinks that he's going to go to Florida because he wants to go to Florida, but his mom wants him to go to Miami, and his mom went with him to Miami a couple of times. So he's like, Mom, come up to Gainesville. You can't do that right now. So it's going to be different. But I don't think that we're going to run into the problem of not having space, because the point of fact is both parties have an escape from the clause or from the contract of being committed. You know what I mean? Because there's no contract actually being signed. It's a verbal contract. So the player can say, hey, just like Brashard Smith did with Florida yesterday, he can say, you know what? I've changed my mind. I am breaking this connection. I am decommitting. So what was once is no longer, and I'm going to move forward. Or the school can then say, hey, you know what? We appreciate it, but we're going to go in a different direction. Miami can do that. And I saw some people were asking me about I think it was an individual player or multiple players, I forget which, on Twitter the other day, and said, well, what if we're at 23 commits and players A, B, and C all want in this class, but we can't take, or we're at 24 commits, 3 new guys, 3 amazing All-American guys want in this class. What are we going to do? Make room. I'm sorry. Like, it just, and I get people, and I'm guilty of this in a video game sense. Like, I'm doing a MLB The Show Dynasty franchise. I'm in 2025. I got that game in 2018. So this is like my 7th year of that franchise that I've spun forward across all these different iterations. And you get, emotionally connected to your players. You don't want to cut them or trade them or things like that. I get that. So if you're thinking about it in the same way in this recruiting class, you don't necessarily want to get rid of a guy who wants to be a Miami Hurricane. But at some point, if I got a 5'10" corner and he's good, we've evaluated him, we think he can fit here, but then I got a 6'2" All-American first-round draft pick, contender for National Player of the Year, who calls and says, hey, coach, I'm trying to come down to the U. It's time to have a tough conversation with that 5'10" corner. Sorry, not sorry. That's just how it's done. And if you want to be a big boy in the world of football, you got to make big boy moves. Georgia ain't got no compunction to do that. Tennessee don't got no compunction to do. And Tennessee is nobody's big boy right now. They're recruiting really well, but they're not winning anything. You think Alabama or Georgia is going to think twice? You think they're going to think twice if they had high school Cam Underwood, before my growth spurt, at 5'9", 145 pounds, committed. But I was an athlete. Don't get it twisted. But I was an athlete. And then you get Patrick Johnson coming out of Ely. You can make that Josh Jobe. You can make that Pat Surtain II. You can make that Tyson Campbell. You can make that whoever. And all of a sudden, one of those kids says, coach, I'm coming to your school. You think that coach wouldn't immediately he wouldn't have already had the phone dialed with my number? Cool. Hey, let me do this thing right quick. I'm going to holler back at you. Hey, yo, Cam. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I don't think that there's going to be a issue with running out of space, because push come to shove, then we're going to shove and make some room.
So how many times roughly is there a miscalculation of spots to where that has to be done?
I mean, where like specifically for another player, a handful of times, but also, again, people change their minds. And we talk about the kids doing it. The programs do it too, where they get down and they see, okay, I thought this kid was going to take this step athletically. I thought he was going to hit this growth spurt. I thought that, and he didn't. And also, okay, I thought this guy was going to transfer out, but he's staying. And then he looks like he's taking a step forward. And then this other guy, so, okay, I'm going to so there is always movement. In the recruiting classes. I would say not every school, but most schools, you probably have a handful of these a year where, maybe you ask a kid to keep his options open and maybe evaluate a future path elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like it will happen. But on a one-to-one peer level, like we're already full and this kid wants to come in, so we got to get rid of this other one. I would say a handful of times, probably nationally in the class.
Jordan Watson. So I see the name Arch Manning, and as soon as I look him up, I see hometown of New Orleans, and I make the informed assumption there. Now, he's in the 2023 class, so we're not going to ask Cam about him. He played freshman football last year. If the bloodlines hold true, he's going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. It's happened 3 times.
But that is, I think that's Cooper Manning's son. So it is the nephew of Peyton and Eli. So just so you see that. And then obviously Archie, would be there, would be the grandfather there. I do not believe that we have offered him as yet. But like Mark said, he's a 2023 guy. So, yeah, I mean, he has 4 offers. Ole Miss, because Eli went there. Duke, because David Cutcliffe coached Peyton. LSU, because LSU is going to offer any good kid from the state of Louisiana. And then Tennessee, because Peyton went there. Like, so the 4 schools that are connected to him with any kind of proximity have offered him already. Oh, and Ole Miss, obviously, Archie went there. So Archie and Eli went there. Peyton went to Tennessee. Cutcliffe at Duke coached them, and then LSU is the local powerhouse school.
Yep.
It makes sense.
I'm still amazed, kind of running the possibilities or probabilities of a father being a first-round pick in the NFL draft, number 2 overall selection. So I think they missed the trifecta by 1. I don't think he was the number 1. I think he was number 2 overall. Then he has 2 sons who are the number 1 overall draft pick and win 4 Super Bowls between them and throw for a zillion yards. And now if this kid hits, obviously they were given every advantage in the world growing up around the NFL and being tutored and mentored and moved in that direction, but they still had to play the position and pull through and had to do it on the field. It's just the legacy is pretty phenomenal if you think about the odds of that happening.
Right.
All right. I know you're asked this all the time. It seems like a silly question to me. Who's going to be the next commitment?
Oh man, I don't know. It was definitely going in the Ryan Rodriguez direction for a long time. You get the surprise of Malik Curtis before Rodriguez, and then Rodriguez himself he popped. Yeah, I don't know, man. It might just be a while, and I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that somebody else comes in sometime soon. But as I'm looking around, I see Elijah Arroyo from Frisco, Texas, is a tight end who just picked up a crystal ball projection on 247 from Andrew Ivins, and he's a guy. I followed him back. Just because I try to follow most of the offers when they come down the timeline, and he was tweeting about committing tonight, yesterday. He was like, "Cool, the pick's been made, the choice is in." No, that's what he said. Like NFL draft style, he said the choice is in, or the pick is in, and he says he's committing tonight at 8:00, which 8:00 Eastern or 10:00 Eastern, 8:00 Texas time could be. So I mean, that's an option maybe, but apart from that, we'll see.
Is Nebraska really convincing local Dade County players to play in Lincoln? Like multiple players?
They got Jaden Francois and Henry Gray last cycle. They just picked up a 6'5" edge rusher, 3-star from Miami Northwestern the other day. So they're doing what you do, and you hammer that second tier of kid. Henry Gray he was committed to Miami. He's a guy, like I said, who I know because he went to Miramar and he was in my music appreciation class for a full year. So I do know Henry personally. But he's a guy who could have went pretty much anywhere. And he chooses to go out there. Jaden Francois was towards the top. Go back to the one before that one for a second. I see the podcast one. I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. Jaden Francois was another guy who was down to Miami and Nebraska, but then got enamored with the coach, who then left Nebraska 30 minutes before Jaden Francois committed, and whatever. And then you get a kid from Northwestern who's going to be a little bit of a project because he's tall and thin at 6'5", 190, 85 pounds as an edge rusher. But obviously, if he's playing edge and playing it well at Northwestern, that means the kid is twitchy. He's long-limbed. He has bursting and bend around the corner. Is not a fully formed and developed recruit or player yet. They're getting some guys from down here, but Nebraska is not coming down here and getting the cream of the crop, just plain and simple. They're doing what you should do, following the recruiting plan, which is, you're going to go down to South Florida. You're going to go into maybe the Atlanta metro area, maybe go into the Dallas DFW Metroplex, maybe go to Houston, maybe go to some of these larger cities, and you hammer them and you get not the cream of the crop, but that next layer, that next tier of player. If you get a couple a year, if you get in your 25-man class in Nebraska, if you get 6 guys from those areas, South Florida, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, maybe one, because they have some guys from California, because so maybe you get a couple from the LA area. But if you get 6 a year from those areas, over the course of 4 years, that means a quarter of your roster is going to be from those places. Bro, I mean, that's not bad. So, I mean, they are giving an opportunity. Nebraska is a good academic institution. So if you push that to the forefront, it does have a long tradition and history of excellence, although obviously, recently that has changed. But there are things that will convince guys or give them the idea that, hey, this could be a place for you. But again, in terms of South Florida, you're not getting the elite superstars, but enough where it helps the kid, it helps the program, and everybody can win from that. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to get some guys. And again, there's just too many for everybody, all the big three or all the Southern teams down here, SEC and the ACC teams to get everybody. But, yeah, Nebraska's getting some, but, I mean, that's fine and good for them. And I wish those players who choose to go out there the best.
Nebraska's 2020 class included 24 signees, 7 from the state of Florida. They had representation from other states, no more than 2 with any other state. Even their home state of Nebraska, 2, Florida 7, and again, no other state above 2 in a class of 24.
Well, I'm going to actually go over and I'm going to look at that really quickly because I want to see, what were they ranking at? Never mind.
Number 30. According
so I just click on Big 10, and then I click on Nebraska, 24 commits. If I'm looking, Henry Gray from Miami, Jaden Francois from Homestead, because I want to see where in Florida they went. They got a kid from Orlando Evans, cool. They got Shaun Green from Wakulla, okay. Marcus Fleming from Northwestern, okay. So you got 2 from Miami, 3 from Miami. Get the Wakulla kid, Port Orange, way up the coast. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and they took the Delancey kid from Northwestern as well. Okay. Yeah. All right. So they did decent. So they got 4 from South Florida. It's not bad.
There was a comment about North Carolina recruiting that caught your eye. Did you have something on that?
I was answering the other question and I didn't even. There we go. So living near UNC, do I have to worry about them and Miami going after the same players and Miami losing? Potentially. I mean, it's possible. But that would only really be when Miami, I think, goes up the coast, goes to that Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia area. I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think that North Carolina is going to come down here for skill guys and beat Miami head-to-head because I don't think it would be a 2-team race for those guys. I think that if Miami's battling, I think that would be Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. You know what I mean? I don't think it would just be like, oh, this 5-star receiver from even Kevin Austin, who ended up going to Notre Dame and then ended up doing nothing, who I really wanted at Miami, from North Broward Prep up in Coconut Creek, one of the better prep schools in the state of Florida. Even if you're like, okay, cool, like this. So I say that to say he chose, even though I hate that place, a very good academic institution in Notre Dame. And you can obviously make the distinction that North Carolina is one of the top public universities in the country. It is a phenomenal education. So I don't think that a 5-star or 4-star receiver would be down to Miami and North Carolina from this area. I think that even if he's looking at good academic schools, then you're going to bring in a Notre Dame, a Stanford, or whomever. So could it happen where Miami loses a guy to North Carolina who both are recruiting? Sure, it could. But I think that would be with Miami playing more away games in recruiting than home games, if that makes sense.
Don't know if you're aware of a Virginia recruit, very highly thought of, Tristan Lee, second-rated player in the state, third-rated offensive tackle, 247 Sports composite out of Fairfax.
Yeah, no, Tristan Lee is a beast. 6'5", 275, has offers from everybody and their mom. As I look on his 247 profile, 36 offers currently. So that's pretty much saying anywhere in the Power 5 conferences, he could show up. And they would be like, cool, yeah, got it. And again, a 5-star offensive tackle at his size and skill. He could go anywhere he wanted. You know, excuse me. Jeez. Woo. Man, those pancakes for breakfast. Woo.
Pancakes.
Oh, my God.
All right.
Man. Oh, I had to just stop. I tweeted about it. These were the lightest, fluffiest, most flavorful pancakes I've ever had in my life. Like, I am going to, like, they're going to haunt my dreams.
That you made yourself?
No, I actually ordered from a local place that I order from frequently. Usually I get breakfast so I don't go over my time of cooking and like just being in the kitchen. Before I come on in the morning on Saturdays, I'll usually get up, I'll order some breakfast, have the breakfast, and then hop on here with you so that I don't have to clean or anything after that. So I got these pancakes, and I got pancakes from this place before, but I don't know who was on the grill today. Oh my goodness. It's like, oh man, I'm going to be chasing that for a long time. It's like I went out to the Shore Club on South Beach when my friend worked for Bacardi for New Year's one year, and like the tickets were like $25,000 a ticket, but I got them for free because he worked at Bacardi and everything. We got the whole VIP experience and and every year after that, I was trying to chase the night. Like, oh, can I just recapture that New Year's? I want that feeling again, and I've never had that, and I fear that I'm going to have this same feeling with these pancakes from this morning because they were so good. Oh my God.
The New Year's experience, I totally understand. Those must have been some good pancakes.
No, they're the best pancakes I've ever had in my life. Full stop. Like ones that I've made other places, Original Pancake House, like other pancake forward places. Oh, these are our signature dish and blah, 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 blah. And I got them from like a random little breakfast cafe here in Northeast Fort Lauderdale. And man, I'm telling you. Anyways, I'm so sorry about that. I digressed. With Tristan Lee, offers have gone out from everyone in America as you look at the list. I mean, like I said, there's 36, and I think it's only 36 because there's a bunch of teams who've already come to terms with the fact that he's not going to come here or go to their school. There's no harm in Garen Justice and the offensive line coach lobbing an offer. Tristan Lee has been very complimentary of the University of Miami, but unless and until he visits, not virtually, in person, then there's nothing left to say. There was a 5-star tackle from West Virginia last cycle or the cycle before. I forget his name. But throughout the whole process, he kept saying, Miami's one of my top schools. I'm going to go visit. Miami's one of my top schools. I'm going to go visit. Miami's in my top. Miami's in my top. Miami's in my top. And to this day, he's never been to Coral Gables or South Florida. So it was great to hear him say that. I wish I remembered his name. But unless and until you visit, and like I said, for 5, and I talked about this with Justin Flo last year, so go back and look that one up. But for major recruits like this, you're going to have to visit at least twice. You're going to need to take an unofficial in your own time and then another official visit at a minimum for me to consider this connection being authentic and really possible moving forward. So Tristan Lee, I hope that Miami pushes for until he clearly says, hey, thanks, but no thanks. But as we sit here right now, I don't think that there's any way that I can reasonably assume that he is likely to come here. And thank you for that compliment, Gary Castro. I appreciate that, man.
Yes, we do. Gary, I don't believe we've heard from you in the past, but a lot of people are silent viewers, which we appreciate. We would love to hear from you from time to time, and certainly hit the like button and subscribe as well. And we also have the super chat that's always on. So whether I get a chance to put it on the banner, keep in mind that Cam gives us an hour plus each week. And as I like to state, which I firmly believe, it's more than the time. It's the insight, it's the information, it's the knowledge, it's the stories, the background, the vibe, the feel, the passion for Miami football, everything involved. And from having the conversations that we have from time to time, that Cam can extend it beyond just Miami to a very knowledgeable and insightful conversation, including factors involving ACC football, college football, sports in general, on down the line. And certainly the art of the voice as well.
Appreciate it.
So we had a conversation. This must have been 5 years ago, where a production buddy of mine has a production company. He left again. We had Cam come on one of our very initial shows. We did a podcast called Behind. Oh my goodness! I guess we called it Behind the Camera. I think it was more clever than that. Anyway, we had a production show talking about how to put productions together, since we had about 40 some years experience between the two of us, and involving vocal development. We brought Cam on to discuss that. It was very insightful.
No, it was a good conversation. And I think there was like a call-in question from a young lady who like does productions as well, and hosts events and things, and was just talking about resonance and projecting voice appropriately and things like that. And it's just it's one of those things. We talked about it for a while, and the thing that I always say, because I get to interact with a variety of people at the secret day job, and invariably, like throughout the course of a day, like so many people are like, "Oh my God, your voice, like, man, blah blah." And it is uncomfortable because I'm not a egotistical person, but I do appreciate it. But the thing I always say is I talk like a dancer walks. You know what I mean? Like the years and years of training that I've put into this voice, I cannot turn off. So if you see someone who is classically trained in dance or something, and they just kind of have that elongation of the spine, they just walk in that kind of a way. You can just like the way you move, even it's just like it's changed. And you do this all the time, whether you think about it or not. So similar kind of a thing. But yeah, that was a fun conversation.
I've never seen this statistic outlined. I don't know if this is accurate from Cynthia. Miami Hurricanes most Super Bowl players. So when that statement's made, I assume that's adding up all the Super Bowl rosters in the history of the Super Bowl. I have never seen that statistic before for any particular program.
Well, let me see, 247. I think they do it all. Well, yeah, most of the content sites do it every year. So ranking the most players in Super Bowls by school. And if I look at the bottom, because I had to scroll, number one with 122 is Miami Hurricanes.
Is there a list?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I will send that to your email right now. Click. And yeah, number two is USC with 120, and then Michigan with 114, UCLA with 112, and down and down and down the list. But yes, it is an accurate list, and it is a true statement that more Miami Hurricane alums have played in Super Bowls than any other school.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, talking Miami football each and every week with Cam Underwood. This is our 61st edition, and we've got 100 on the line, and this is always the case, and I state this almost every week. We've got the most people on the line near the tail end of the proceedings. Therefore, you wait for the video to post, and then you can take in the rest of the show. As we're sitting at noon, so I will leave it up to Cam in regards to any other takes that you have for us. The
only thing is
to do.
Right. The only thing is just kind of circling back to earlier. We were talking about the Brashard Smith from Palmetto and everything, and Canesville, Footballville, good friend, not a friend, good guy, runs content for his own site and everything. So he's around. He's been around football for a long time. But he said, basically, with Jason Marshall putting out a top list without Miami, a top three, and then you have, other guys committed elsewhere. There's five, or the kid, the linebacker was at Northwestern. He now goes to Chaminade. He committed to Tennessee the other day. Terrence Lewis. So there's five-star kids in South Florida, and the remaining three, Miami needs to get one or two, because going 0 for 5 means it's a failed class. And I said, well, if that's the foundation for a failed class, ... because spoiler alert, we're not going to get any of them. So let me go down the list. You have Terrence Lewis, who's committed to Tennessee. Miami elected not to recruit him for a variety of reasons, and I'll leave it at that. Then you just had the other one, Jason Marshall, put up a top 3 that did not include Miami, so he's not coming here. The other 3 5-stars are Ja'Cory Brooks, wide receiver from Booker T. Washington, Leonard Taylor, defensive tackle from Miami Palmetto, who I already mentioned, and then safety James Williams, who is back at American Heritage again after having transferred to a couple different schools and done a whirlwind tour of high schools in Broward County. Those are the other 3 5-stars in South Florida this year. Miami's not going to get any of them, and I'm just going to let you guys know that right now. The only one that there's even a puncher's chance with is Ja'Cory Brooks. Leonard Taylor's not coming here. James Williams is not coming here. James Williams has already put up a top 3 that does not include Miami, so I don't know why the choice to list him as on the potential side as opposed to the non-potential side with Jason Marshall was made. But hey, I can't talk about people creating their own content. What I will say is Miami's not going to get any of them, and if that's a failed class, that's a failed class. But we got to keep moving. We got to keep pushing. So if you're not getting a Ja'Cory Brooks, cool. Then I mean, it's not cool, but I still need a good amount of talented receivers. If you're not getting a Leonard Taylor, which you're not, what are we going to do with defensive tackle? If you're not getting a James Williams, which you're not, what are we doing at safety? You know what I mean? So I would say come to terms with that now. It is still just the conversations need to be had about why we're not getting any of these guys. You know, that didn't even include a Marcus Tate, you know, from U School, who's going to Clemson. That doesn't even include a couple other guys who are already committed elsewhere. It was just like the currently ranked 5-stars, even though Marcus Tate was ranked as a 5-star for a year and a half, almost 2. I don't know what he did to lose his 5th star at 6'5", 290 pounds, but hey, whatever. But yeah, you know, it's going to be a struggle to get the top guys. But Miami does need to find the guys they need. And then, I mean, it gendered a conversation about cornerback coach Mike Rumph and his ability or lack thereof at recruiting, because you get a 3-star, the Bishop Verreau kid, Malik Curtis, and then the next day, Jason Marshall, a 5-star, 6'2", 200-pound cornerback All-American, says, I'm not coming to Miami. This is my list. And one of our guys already wrote about, and I've spoken about it, and I think that's where the foundation for the piece came from, about how the fact of each of the 5 years that Rumph has been here as cornerbacks coach, we've gotten a high 3-star or a 4-star cornerback to commit near to signing day. So at the end of the class, we're getting a guy. But the conversation recently on Twitter was like, so why are we missing on all these other guys? And I think that that's a fair point. And it's not, I mean, it was focused on Rumph because you had the take Malik Curtis, lose Jason Marshall interaction very clearly within 2 days. But I think that extends out as well. So when you're seeing these other guys, so there are struggles there for Miami. Obviously, you know, looking terrible last year did not help things along with those guys. And I would be nice to have had a full spring practice, maybe a spring game to showcase, you know, a certain time for a season coming up. Some of those things, those tent poles, you know, if you're able to meet in person, maybe you can kind of massage some of the negative feelings with some of these kids or things like that. But as it stands, it is a real struggle to get the top talent that Miami needs. And Miami's been getting top talent because, again, the blue chip ratio has been over 50%, or it was last year. It was the year before. It was a couple years, you know, like 3 out of the last 4 years has been over 50%, which means you have more 4-stars and 5-stars recruits on your roster than 2-stars and 3-stars, which every champion has. So you're recruiting to the level where you can compete for championships. You cannot let that slide. So you have to get good kids. And this kind of goes back to the previous question about, okay, so what's up with, you know, Miami versus North Carolina? North Carolina is beasting on the trail right now. So the gap in talent between Miami and North Carolina is closing. So we need to maintain where we are and not slide back. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit of a diatribe. I wanted to be more clear on it, and I don't think that I did it justice to my own thoughts. But in general, there are struggles for Miami to get top talent to commit to the U, to play for Miami, especially in this class. And this season, should we have it, is going to be a real rubber meat road moment for Manny Diaz's staff and tenure here at Miami.
Let me ask you this question regarding the recruiting numbers, because we had this conversation on a Notre Dame show. We had this conversation on an Ohio State show and maybe others. because there seems to be a distinction between the elite and then the next tier. There certainly is on the field, and it seems to show up in the recruiting rankings. So I'm trying to determine how significant it is and what it means. So I know the difference between having the 3rd rated recruiting class in the country and the 11th rated recruiting class in the country. It's 8 spots. It's 3 versus 11. But what does that mean in regards to players? So I'm looking at these rosters, and I'm looking at, so in particular, like Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan. I think all of us would understand where they stand in college football right now. They're a 2nd tier. Those teams are typically losing 2 and 3 games a year. They're going 9 and 3, 10 and 2. The difference between them and what we know to be the elite seem to be like, what, like the signing of like 3 to 4 players out of a class of 20 to 22?
Not even. I mean, for those teams, it'd probably be 1 to 3.
1 to 3 players is making the
year
difference between competing for a national championship consistently, like the teams we know, versus losing like 3 games a year.
I mean, because those teams are all 50% or more ratio teams.
Sure.
So, I mean, 1 to 3 a year means 4 to 12 on your roster over a 4-year period. Or if you want to extend it to 5 with the 5th year, with a redshirt year, that's between 5 and 15 players on your roster. Now, an additional 5 players of that blue chip caliber is a big step. Now, pretend that, pretend it's Miami, who was at 52%, right? So 5 players out of 85, if 5 divided by 85 is 6% of the roster, right? So that would be an additional 6%. So that would take you from 52 to 58, right? But if you had 15, and that's an additional 18%, that now takes you from 52% to 70% blue chip. Those are Alabama numbers. You know what I mean? So it seems insurmountable. It seems like this massive thing, but over the course of time, it's really a couple of guys a year, every year, consistently. You know what I mean? And again, I used to apologize for it, but I don't apologize for it. This is what I was talking about in the recruiting rules with the rule of stack elite classes. You have to do that, have to do that, have to do that. And yeah, it could fluctuate, from year to year. But again, an additional 1 to 3 blue chip recruits a year will be between 6 and 18% difference over the course of a 5-year rolling window of eligibility. That can be massive.
Alabama's 2020 classes, 21 out of 25 are 4 and 5 stars.
Right, and they probably took a kicker and something like that.
Yeah,
and so that's 84% right there in that one class. And it's probably higher than that because if you take a kicker, you're already punting that slot. So you're really talking 21 out of 24, which is 7/8, which is whatever that is. You know what I mean? Well, 1/8 is 12.5. So 7/8 is 87.5% right there or out of 24, because we're already saying we're taking a kicker. So we don't care about the blue chip ratio for that because kickers are really evaluated on a different scale anyway. And you really go by different ratings than the overall ratings, because overall ratings, sure, like a kicker is never going to be a 5-star. Like you're never going to have that because just of the scarcity of usage of that position. However, if you go to the specialized rankings from Corn Blue Kicking or I forget the name of the other one, but there's 2 major kicking services that rank players, and you go on the specialized rankings for those specialized positions, that 3-star could still be the best one in America. So, I mean, is it really a 3-star to get the best prospect at this specific engagement in America? But even if you're just going on the rankings, again, you remove that 21 out of 24, 87.5% of their incoming class were blue chip players. But again, if you're talking about 21 out of 24 versus if I just went on the prior example and saying, okay, we're going to go to 18 out of 24. That's easy math. That's 2/3. So you're seeing how those 3 guys took it from 67% to 87.5%.
Ohio State, 19 out of 24, and all 5 are from the state of Ohio that are 3 stars. So I think they're filling out the roster, and based on the conversations I have with the Ohio State beat writers, obviously they want to maintain relationships in Ohio and fill out the roster. And
Yeah, and I mean that's the same thing that Miami does. Like you're gonna shoot for the stars, and then okay, like we're gonna take, this guy here if all things are gonna be equal. At a 3-star level. I mean, it's like a Mike Harley, who's had a decent career, but nobody's world beater. But all things being equal, I would rather take this speedy 3-star player from St. Thomas as opposed to going to anywhere else and getting one, because St. Thomas is right here. And St. Thomas is going to have a 4-star or a 5-star. And we're going to recruit there every single year. We're going to take Michael Irvin Jr. When he transferred in from Texas that year, we recruited him. We recruit Mike Harley. We recruit these other guys. And we might not get all of them. We recruited the Dumerville kid, Marcus Dumerville, and the Martinez kid who both of them went to LSU. But our name is good at that school, because we are there year in and year out. We have multiple guys over the course of many years. You can get Jelani Hamilton. You can look at other guys that have been recruited and played at the University of Miami. Philip Dorsett, 1st-round draft pick. You can look at all these guys over the course of time. It's the same thing for all those schools.
I've got to think that the widest range of talent, ability, and ceiling potential is among the 3 stars.
Oh, yeah, that's the catch-all. 5 stars are just like, wow, okay, Patrick Johnson.
Yeah, there's only like 40 of them.
Not even. It's like 30 or 32 a year of like the name brand Justin Flo from last class. Plug it in, let him play, let him go, because he's going to make everything better. He's going to be, first team all conference as a freshman All-American, all that. So you got 30 or something of those. You got a couple hundred across the entire country of 4 stars. And then you got like a couple thousand, well, not a couple thousand, but like 1,000 or more 3 stars. And that is the biggest swath of the players we're going to talk about at the top levels of the basically, these are anybody who can play at a Power 5 school in their career. That might be a day one, like a Mike Pinckney was a 3-star. Started from day one, played for 4 years, 2 times honorable mention, 1 time second team all ACC kind of guy, to the upper end 3 stars who turn into superstars. But yeah, that's where things that's a great catch-all area for recruiting. And it's like, again, leaning back on my prior career as a teacher, it's almost the same as grade inflation. I would rather give you a C at a 70% than hear your mama mouth if I give you that 69 that you actually earned, or that 68.5. So you just bump it up to a C, give an extra point on this assignment. Instead of a check minus, you give it a check. Instead of a check, you give it a check plus, whatever. And hey, look, I did it. I know how the game goes. But you do that kind of a thing because there's a stigma associated with a 2-star and a 1-star. Just like in education, there's a stigma with a D and an F. Even if it's rightfully earned, even if you have the foundation logically, mathematically, and everything performance-based for that, there's a stigma with it. So in the recruiting world, it's just kind of been that, sure, you got to offer from FAU 3-star. There's a little bit of a psychological component to the 3-star ranking as well. And look, and there are guys who are 3 stars. Boom. But they're at the lower ends. There is a little bit of, softly massaging egos by giving that extra little as opposed to saying for these reasons. Because if you go on 247, they list and they say a 5-star means this, a 4-star, 3, 2, and 1. This is what that means. It's the same. Again, the analogy is so perfect. It's the same thing as the first day of class when I was a teacher and I said, look, these are the lines of demarcation for all the grades that I'll give. And this is what this means. So if you earned a D on this, it's for these reasons. This is the rubric. These are the things that we're lacking. And if all of your assignments are to this level, that is what you have earned. But then I got to deal with Donte mama, and then the guidance counselor calling me, and then the administrator, and then you know what? Nah, and especially with Fs, because Fs means you get no credit. That means I would have to see your face again next year. Boy, you better take that 60 and D and get on with me. But yeah, it's very similar, is what I'm saying.
No, it's a great analogy, because if somebody asks Cam, what did you get in biology? And he says a B, and then I'm asked as well, and I say a B. But then if somebody, if Cam chooses to say, I got an 89, and I choose to say, I got an 81.
Right. But you could say it either way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So you could say, oh, I'm an 89 4-star, and you're an 81 4-star. Or you could just say 4-star, baby. Okay, I don't care. Look, I don't care what the number says. Like the underlying number. At the top line, it says, I'm a 4-star. Boom. I'm a 3-star. And then again, to your initial question about 3 stars, you could be a 3-star at 79.9 or a 3-star at 61 in terms of, the numbering. But all of it says 3-star. Again, it's like looking at the box score for baseball. That flare over the second baseman's head, that Texas leaguer, and that shot liner between the 5.5 hole opposite way for a left-hand hitter, that line drive at 110 off the bat, those both look like what in the box score? A single.
On any given day, you might have hit 3 bullets for outs and gone 0 for 4, and I hit a couple flares and I went 2 for 4.
Right. But I mean, even if it was that, but like, but on the same, keeping the same level,
Sure.
it was a single. Yours was a rope. Woo, boy! I mean, that pitcher thought he was going to sneak an inside fastball on the first pitch, bam, and Mark lines it, and then I'm down 0-2. I get a slider off the plate, and just protect, and it flares literally over the outstretched glove, tips off the first baseman's glove trying to jump and get it, and it falls a half inch inside the line. And he turns around and grabs it, but I'm already, because I'm fast, I'm already at first base. Looks like a single in the box score for you and for me. But unless you were watching the game, unless you were there and got the full narrative, you wouldn't know the difference. Same thing with these ratings. 3-star. Are you a 61 3-star? Are you a 90 or a 79.9 3-star? So, yeah, that is the catch-all kind of thing. And it also saves a little bit of the egg on the face for recruiting analysts and ranking associates. Because, again, just like the fictional Donte, because I never had a student named Donte, by the way. But it would be if you ranked him as a 2-star and he goes to wherever, Mississippi State, redshirts for a year, comes on as a redshirt freshman, has 500 or 600 yards at receiver, takes a step forward as a redshirt sophomore, he's returning kicks, returning punts, that has over 1,000 yards, right? If you've ranked him as a 3-star, he fits in that 3-star bucket of, okay, cool. But if you rank him as a 2-star because he's only 5'10", 140 pounds, and by the rubric it fits there, now you look dumb for having left him down there, as opposed to giving him a little bit of a bump. Because if you miss on a 3-star, nobody cares. If you miss by over-evaluating, you know what I mean? If you say, I think this kid can turn into a productive player in his career, and he doesn't, nobody cares about that. But if you miss on a 2-star and he does numbers, Justin Jefferson, hello, have you stopped hearing about the fact that he was a 2-star? No. But if you miss on one of them and he does better, now you got egg on your face. You got to explain and explain and explain. So those borderline kids, there is a little bit of, just give it a little nudge.
So in the 2020 class, poor Mikhail Sherman, outside linebacker who signed with Georgia. He's the 32nd ranked player in the country, and Cam nailed it, 31 5-stars. So he's number 32. So he's the highest ranked 4-star. So he's in that category going all the way down to what, maybe about 300 4-stars?
Yeah, give or take.
Something in that range. Okay. So he's in a group of about 300 players, and he is number 1 in the group of 4-stars at number 32. And true to your other point, I counted up 21 of the top 28 players in the country in the 2020 class signed at one of 5 schools.
I don't just make this stuff up, guys. I don't. I mean, it's the proof is in the pudding. I don't bring these names up for nothing. I don't. I don't just grasp at straws. I mean, and sometimes, of course, like if I'm making an analogy, like I did with the teaching thing, that was off the top of the head, and I hope that you enjoyed that. And I know that was on par for the conversation. But like, I'm not just randomly, I didn't mention, Boise State and Western Idaho as the places that these go. Like, we all know where these guys go. And USC, well, Oregon is a big one on the West Coast, and USC is trying to do something in this class because they only got 2 4-stars last year, and they already have 8 or 9 committed in this 2021 class. So whatever buy-in they needed from Clay Helton and these kids in this community, or their community in Southern California, getting back towards, when every player who went to Mater Dei, every quarterback who went to Mater Dei came to USC and was a quarterback. Obviously they missed on Bryce Young last year because of that, but you have Jay Sarah, which people out there nickname US Sarah because it's spelled SCERA, and they just put a U in front of it because every 5-star from there, where are you going to go? Fight on. That's it. And they're turning things around. So, I mean, yeah, you can add maybe a couple of teams to that. Notice how Miami has not been in that conversation at any point of the initial or secondary point of that conversation. And that's what Miami's trying to fight. Miami's in a different situation because Miami has to win to get there. Miami is very similar to USC, a smaller private school in an inner city location. But they have a strong history of success over a longer time than we do. But, USC was the football team in LA for the longest time. You know what I mean? So they have a stance in the LA area that I think is a little bit different than what Miami does. And for whatever reason, the socialization of Miami kids going elsewhere to succeed has really taken root in the last little bit. So you see guys going to Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, whoever, and flourishing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy now. So it's talking, it proves itself. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that Miami has to combat as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, USC is a mystery to me, and to a lesser extent UCLA, because even though they're not USC and don't have the history, man, they got kids all over the place and they play in a bad division. They're basically competing on the field with Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, with that kind of talent in their backyard.
Well, Chip Kelly's weird, and was it like because they do the 8 clapper? I don't even know what that actually is. I just keep hearing people say 8 clap. I couldn't clap it for you. I couldn't tell you exactly. I just see that they do that. But apparently, like, they only give offers on the 8th or something, and like you can only tweet your commitment like on a certain day of the month or something like that, or like it's like I was hearing about it. It was like something really weird or something, but it was like definitely not a standard recruiting interaction or engagement. And then like they're wondering why they're not getting guys, and they're trying to do this like weird cultish insular kind of stuff. I don't know. It's odd. It's just really, I don't know.
Don't make it difficult for 17 and 18-year-olds. Don't make it difficult. I mean, all right. Drill time 305. Thank you so much for encouraging everyone to hit the like button. Again, Cam gives us an hour plus each and every week. Understand that I'm going to speak for him, that I believe he enjoys doing this. I love having him on. I love doing this show. There are other options in life and things that come across each of our paths, and especially him, since I'm going to focus on his contribution. So he has other options and opportunities out there. So there has to be incentive and motivation besides having a good time to come on here on a regular basis. So if you have any leads on any type of sponsorship that we could add to this, that would be phenomenal. And of course, the super chat is available. And I lost his Shaun Green. I won't be able to post it. I did a number of times earlier. Shaun Green, thank you so much for the contribution. All right, everyone. Another Miami Hurricanes Live is in the books. Cam, thanks for giving us your time.
Not a problem. And as always, appreciate you having me. Just real quick, thank you for the continued support at State of the U. We are trying to give you a couple of pieces of content a week, trying to at least hit 1 or 2 a day. So we had Jersey Week last week. as our SB Nation theme week, and I think we had a great time with that. Republished Marshall's piece from last year about his favorite and least favorite Canes jerseys, because like that was so on the nose for Jersey Week that instead of just recreating or reinventing the wheel, figured that we would just kind of leverage something that we already had created. We have another theme week coming up this week. As per usual, I'm not going to tell you what that is, and I hope that you tune in to State of the U and check it out. On all of our social, we are at The State of the U, so that's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The website is stateoftheu.com. My personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. I hope that you please come on over and fan with us, and we will see you next time.
I am in the process of realigning college football, so check out our conference realignment videos that are posted each and every day. And then I've got a list of all sorts of debate topics that we are hitting. The first one will be the Georgia-Florida fight for the SEC East for 2020 and the trends going forward. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. See you next time.